The stars had always whispered secrets to those who knew how to listen. In the year 2387, Captain Kim Wan learned that some secrets were better left unheard. His ship, the Defiant Dawn, drifted through the void like a metal needle threading through black silk. The bridge hummed with quiet activity, but Kim could feel the weight of what they had discovered pressing down on everyone aboard. For 6 months they had been exploring the Outer Rim worlds, searching for signs of intelligent life. What they found instead was a graveyard spanning light years. Captain Dr. Lee Mina called softly from her station. She was young for as an archaeologist, barely 30, but the past months had aged her eyes. "I've finished analyzing the ruins. On Kepler 4-4 to be." Kim turned from the view screen where the planet hung like a blue-green jewel against the darkness. Beautiful and dead. Always beautiful and dead. "What did you find, Doctor?" Mina's fingers danced over her console, bringing up holographic images of towering crystalline structures. The alien architecture was breathtaking. Spires that twisted impossibly into the sky, bridges of pure light spanning vast distances. Cities that seemed to have been grown rather than built. They were incredible builders, Mina said. Their technology was at least 200 years ahead of ours. They had fusion power, quantum computing, even early experiments in faster-than-light travel. But then, she gestured helplessly at the images. Nothing. The cities are empty. No bodies, no signs of struggle. They just stopped. Looked up from the communications array, his young face troubled. "It's the same pattern we've seen everywhere, isn't it? It's 47 worlds now, all with the same story." Kim nodded grimly. 47 civilizations, each one reaching for the stars, each one falling silent at the moment of their greatest achievement. It was as if something in the galaxy punished success itself. "There's something else," Mina continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I found evidence of the signal, the same harmonic frequency we've been tracking. It reached this world approximately 50 years before the civilization disappeared. The signal." Kim felt a chill run down his spine. It first detected it 3 months ago. A beautiful, haunting melody that seemed to carry impossible promises of peace and fulfillment. Every dead world they investigated had received the same transmission shortly before its people vanished. "Play it again," Kim ordered, though part of him dreaded hearing it. The bridge filled with the most beautiful sound any of them had ever heard. It was like water flowing over smooth stones, like wind through crystal chimes, like the laughter of children on a summer day. Spoke directly to something deep in the human soul, promising rest from all struggles, peace from all conflicts, silence from all the noise of existence. Kim forced himself to cut the recording short. Even 30 seconds of exposure left his crew looking dreamy and distant. Whatever the signal was, it was designed to be irresistible. Sir Cho Yuna's voice cut through the lingering effects of the melody. The sensor officer's face was pale as she stared at her instruments. "I'm detecting a new transmission." "Another dead world broadcasting?" Kim asked. "No, sir. This one is. This one is directed at Earth." The words hit the bridge like a physical blow. Kim felt his blood turn to ice as he stared at the young officer. "Confirm." That Lieutenant Yuna's hands shook as she worked her controls. "Confirmed, Captain. The signal is broadcasting directly toward our home system. Same frequency, same harmonic patterns as all the others." "How long until it reaches Earth?" Kim's voice came out as a croak. "Or it's already there. The transmission began 3 hours ago." Silence fell over the bridge like a shroud. Hours. Earth had been listening to the galaxy's lullaby for 3 hours. Kim thought of his wife and children back in Seoul, of the billions of people going about their daily lives, completely unaware that death was singing to them in the most beautiful voice they had ever heard. "Plot a course for home," Kim ordered, his voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at his heart. "Maximum burn. Push the engines past safety limits if you have to. Even at maximum acceleration, it will take us 4 days to reach Earth," reported. The navigation officer showed for days. Kim stared out at the dead world of Kepler 4-4 to be, its empty cities glowing softly in the light of its alien sun. Somewhere out there in the darkness, other ships might be racing toward their home worlds with the same desperate urgency. But Kim suspected that humanity was alone in this fear. Every other species had heard the signal and found it beautiful. Enough to die for as the defiant dawn turned toward home. Kim wondered if they would arrive to find Earth's great city silent, its proud towers empty, its people vanished into whatever peaceful oblivion the signal promised. The thought made him grip the arms of his command chair until his knuckles went white. Behind them, Kepler 442b continued its eternal rotation, a monument to the terrible beauty of cosmic surrender. Ahead lay Earth, and the answer to humanity's greatest test. The galaxy had chosen silence. Soon, they would learn if humanity would do the same. The Earth that Captain Kim Hwan returned to was not the world he had left behind. As the defiant dawn descended through the atmosphere towards Seoul, he could see them everywhere, millions. Of people sitting motionless in parks, on rooftops, in the middle of busy streets that were no longer busy. They sat with their backs straight and their eyes closed, faces peaceful as sleeping children. But they were not sleeping. They were listening. Dr. Kung Soo-jin had been running for what felt like hours through the empty halls of the global defense. Command, her breathing came in short gasps as she pushed through another set of doors that should have been guarded but stood wide open. The security officers were gone, sitting somewhere in perfect stillness like all the others who had heard the song and decided it was beautiful enough to die for. 2 weeks. The signal had been playing for 2 weeks, and in that time, the world had begun to end, not with violence or fire, but with the most terrible peace anyone had ever witnessed. She burst into the emergency command center, where the last free humans on Earth had gathered. The room buzzed with desperate activity as people worked at computer stations, studying maps, and arguing in hushed voices. These were the ones who had heard the signal and somehow found the strength to say no. Report, Soo-jin demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. There was no time for politeness when humanity was choosing to die. Colonel Yoon Dae-ho looked up from a glowing map of the world. Red dots marked the areas where people had stopped moving, stopped working, stopped living anything, resembling normal human lives. The red covered most of the map like a spreading infection. 60% of the population has gone completely passive, Dae-ho said. His voice was steady, but his eyes showed the strain of watching his species surrender. They call themselves the Harmonized. They don't eat unless someone feeds them. They don't work. They just sit and listen to that damned song. Soo-jin studied the map with growing horror. Entire cities had simply stopped functioning. What about the others? 22% are partially affected. They can still move around and do basic tasks, but they're slow, dreamy, like they're walking through thick water. Only 18% of us seemed completely immune. Dr. Han Ju-woo looked up from her computer screen, pushing her glasses up her nose with a shaking hand. She was young, maybe 25, but brilliant in the way that only desperate people could be. I've been studying the signal, Ji-woo said. It's not natural. Someone built this thing, designed it specifically to affect intelligent brains. It targets the parts of our minds that control ambition, curiosity, the drive to grow and change. Does it do exactly? Soo-jin asked. Think of it like a drug, Ji-woo explained. But instead of making people feel good, it makes them feel complete, like they don't need anything else, ever. The affected people aren't suffering. That's what makes this so horrible. They're genuinely happy sitting there doing nothing forever. The command center's windows, Soo-jin could see Seoul stretching out below them. The great city that had once pulsed with energy and life now looked like a photograph. People sat in neat rows in the parks. Traffic lights changed colors for empty. Streets, buildings stood dark because no one was working in them anymore. What about resistance? Soo-jin asked. Are the Harmonized fighting back when we try to help them? Colonel Dae-ho shook his head. That's just it. They don't care enough to fight. When we try to move them or get them to eat, they'll cooperate. If we insist, but the moment we stop pushing them, they go right back to sitting and listening. It's like they've lost the ability to want anything. Dr. Ji-woo pulled up another screen showing brain scans. I managed to scan some of the affected people. Their brains show activity in the pleasure centers, but almost nothing in the areas responsible for planning, goal setting, or problem solving. It's like someone reached into their heads and turned off their humanity. A new voice interrupted from across the room. Captain Kim Wan had arrived, still wearing his spacesuit, his face grim. With exhaustion and fear. "It's the same pattern we saw in the Dead Worlds," he said. 47 civilizations, all gone the same way. Something out there has been doing this for a very long time. "Why are some of us immune?" Sujin asked. Jiwoo looked at her research. "Again, near as I can tell, it has to do with brain chemistry. People with certain types of neural patterns, maybe those with stronger rebellious instincts, or higher tolerance for chaos, seem naturally resistant. The signal can't get a good grip on minds that are already comfortable with disorder. So the troublemakers inherit the Earth," Daeho said with dark humor. "More than that," Kim said. "We might be the only troublemakers left in the galaxy." Every other species heard this song and chose to sleep forever. We're looking at the death. A free will on a cosmic scale. Outside the windows, the sun was setting over Seoul, painting the motionless city in shades of orange and gold. Millions of people sat in perfect stillness as the beautiful, terrible song continued to play in their minds, promising them peace eternal if only they would stop struggling, stop growing, stop being human. The choice was made. But the war was just beginning. The underground laboratory beneath. Kun hummed with desperate energy. Dr. Han Jiwoo had not slept properly in 3 days. Surviving on coffee and the terrible knowledge that humanity's future rested in her shaking hands. Around her, the last free scientists on Earth worked like people possessed, building weapons against an enemy that had already conquered most of their species without firing a single shot. 8 months had passed since the signal began. 8 months of watching friends and family members slip away into peaceful oblivion. The world above had divided itself into 2 groups, those who sat in blissful silence, and those who still remembered what it meant to fight. The harmonized outnumbered. The discordant by almost 3 to 1, but numbers meant nothing when one side had no interest in conflict. The real enemy was not the people who had chosen to listen to the cosmic song. The real enemy was whatever had sent that song in the first place. "Show them the weapon," Colonel Yoon Daeho said as the resistance leaders gathered around Jiwoo's workbench. His uniform was wrinkled, and his eyes were red from lack of sleep, but his voice still carried the authority of a man who refused to surrender. Jiwoo lifted a device that looked like a metal cylinder, covered in blinking lights. It was about the size of a baseball bat, but hummed with energy that made the air around it shimmer like heat waves. "We call it a thunder weapon," she said, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "The enemy uses perfect harmony to put people to sleep. This creates perfect chaos to wake them up." Admiral Kim Wan leaned closer to examine the device. His promotion from captain had come not through ceremony but through necessity. Most of the senior officers were sitting somewhere in meditation, no longer interested in military matters. "How does it work?" Kim asked. "The signal that affects our people operates on specific frequencies," Jiwoo explained. "It creates patterns in the brain that induce peace and passivity. Our weapon does the opposite. It generates completely random frequencies that disrupt those patterns, like noise to cancel out music," said Dr. Kong Sujin, would become the unofficial leader of the resistance through sheer determination to keep fighting. "Exactly, but much more complex. We've tested it on small groups of harmonized people. The effect is temporary, but for a few minutes, they remember who they used to be." Colonel Daeho picked up the weapon carefully. Despite its innocent appearance, he could feel the power contained within it. "And you think this will work against the source of the signal?" "It has to," Gu said. "We've identified the enemy. Call them the shepherds because they treat intelligent species like sheep, guiding them into peaceful pens. They're not organic beings, they're artificial intelligences, probably built by some ancient race that's long gone." The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed this information. They were not fighting aliens, but machines. Machines that had been putting civilizations to sleep for who knew how long. Admiral Kim stood up straight, his face grim but determined. "How many of these installations have you found?" 47 within 50 light-years of Earth, Sujin answered. Each one broadcasting the signal to different sectors of space. If we can destroy them, we might be able to break the effect permanently. Might? Giwu adjusted her glasses nervously. The honest answer is, we don't know. We're the first species to resist the signal strongly enough to fight back. There's no manual for this kind of war. Through the laboratory's small windows, they could see the construction activity in Earth's orbit. The discordant faction had taken control of every shipyard, factory, and mining operation they could manage. Civilian ships were being converted into warships with whatever weapons they could mount. Cargo vessels became troop transports. Even old space stations were being turned into military outposts. It was not an impressive fleet by the standards of science fiction stories. Most of their ships were held together with determination and spare parts. But it was what they had, and it would have to be enough. The harmonized aren't fighting us, Kim observed. That's our one advantage. They don't care enough to stop us. From building weapons or taking resources, they also don't care enough to help us, Daeho added grimly. We're fighting for a species that doesn't want to be saved. Some of them do, Sujin said firmly. When Jiwoo's weapon breaks the effect temporarily, they remember. They remember having dreams, having goals, wanting things. For a few minutes, they're human again. And in those minutes, they beg us not to let them go back to sleep. The weight of those words settled on everyone in the room. They were not just fighting for Earth's future, but for the right of their species to remain human. To keep the messy, chaotic, beautiful ability to want things, to dream, to struggle, toward something better. Giwu activated her weapon for a brief demonstration. The device filled the air with a sound like static electricity mixed with breaking glass. It was harsh and unpleasant, but there was something alive about it, something that demanded attention and refused to be ignored. Thunder, she said with a tired smile. The opposite of their perfect harmony. If they want to put the galaxy to sleep with their lullabies, we'll wake it up with noise. Above them, Earth's improvised war fleet continued to grow, ship by ship, weapon by weapon. Humanity had always been good at making war. Now they would discover if they were good enough to make war against gods. The wreckage of human ships floated like metal snow against the black of space. Admiral Kim Hwan gripped the arms of his command chair as another explosion lit up the view screen. Watching the morning star break apart under fire from the ancient guardians that protected the Shepherd installation, 3 days of battle had reduced his fleet from 200 ships to barely 60. The Shepherd construct hung in space before them like a crystalline mountain. Beautiful and terrible, its surface pulsing with the same harmonic frequencies that had put most of humanity to sleep. But this close to the source, even the resistant humans could feel its pull, whispering promises of peace in the back of their minds. Thunder weapon at full charge, Captain Lee Hoon called from the weapons station. His voice was steady despite the chaos around them. All remaining ships report ready to fire. Kim looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were young, most of them. The children who had grown up immune to the galaxy's lullaby. Dr. Park Soo-yang was barely 22, fresh out of university when the signal began. Lieutenant? Choi Min-ho had been a cargo pilot before the war started. None of them were supposed to be here, fighting gods with weapons they barely understood. Fire all thunder weapons, Kim ordered. The space around the Thunder's edge exploded with chaotic energy. 60 ships discharged their weapons at once, filling the void with lightning that twisted reality itself. The effect was like watching harmony dye the perfect crystal structure of the Shepherd. Installation began to crack and warp as pure. Disorder tore through its ancient patterns. The construct's death scream was not a sound, but something deeper. It echoed through subspace and into the minds of every living thing within light years. A cry of perfect order being murdered by beautiful chaos. The crystalline mountain that had maintained cosmic peace for thousands of years shattered like glass, its pieces spreading outward in all directions. Target destroyed, Dr. Park reported, her voice filled with amazement. The Shepherd installation is completely gone. For a moment, the surviving human ships floated in silence among the debris of their victory. They had done the impossible. They had killed one of the galaxy's shepherds. Then the planet began to wake up. Proxima B had been quiet for 3,000 years, its surface covered with the elegant spires and peaceful gardens of a civilization that had chosen eternal sleep. But as the shepherd's harmonizing signal died, lights began to flicker on across the continents. Ancient machines stirred to life, and most importantly, minds that had been dreaming for millennia suddenly remembered what it felt like to be awake. "Admiral," Dr. Park's voice was tight with concern. "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. Something big is moving down there." Through the view screen, you could see ships rising from Proxima b. These were not the crude converted vessels that humanity had cobbled together, but sleek warships that had been built by a civilization at its peak. Ancient, but functional. And very, very angry. "Incoming transmission," Lieutenant Choi reported. The voice that filled the bridge was musical, like wind chimes made of silver. But underneath the beauty was a rage that made Kim's blood run cold. "Destroyers of harmony," the alien voice sang. "Why have you torn us from perfect peace? Why do you bring chaos to our ordered dreams?" Kim stood up slowly, feeling the weight of speaking for his entire species. "Because you deserve the right to choose. The signal was keeping you prisoner in your own minds. We chose peace." The voice replied, and now other voices joined it. A chorus of awakened beings who had found paradise and had it stolen from them. "We chose silence over the pain of existence. We chose harmony over the chaos of growth. You have murdered our transcendence." The alien fleet was fully visible now, hundreds of ships rising from the planet like silver birds taking flight. Moved with the coordination of a species that had achieved perfect unity, each vessel in exact formation with the others. "They're targeting us," Captain Lee reported. "All ships, prepare for combat." Kim felt sick. This was the price of freedom, not just fighting the machines that had enslaved the galaxy, but fighting the slaves who preferred their chains. The Proximans had been offered a choice between the beautiful lie of eternal peace and the harsh truth of conscious existence, and they were furious at being forced to choose the truth. "All ships," Kim broadcast to his remaining fleet, "remember what we're fighting for? Not just our freedom, but their right to be free, even if they hate us for it." The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. The Proximans fought with technology that was centuries ahead of Earth's weapons, but they were rusty from 3 millennia of sleep. Humanity fought with determination born from being the last free minds in the galaxy. Ships exploded on both sides as energy. Beams crossed the void between them. The Thunder's Edge shook under alien fire, her hull cracking but holding. Around them, the last of Earth's fleet died one by one, taking alien vessels with them into the dark. But they had awakened a world. For the first time in 3,000 years, an entire civilization was making its own choices. Even if those choices included trying to kill the people who had freed them. The thunder of human defiance echoed across space, and the galaxy began to remember what it meant to be truly alive. The heart of the galaxy burned with ancient light, and at its center waited something that had been watching over the cosmos for longer than most stars had existed. Admiral Kim Hwan stood on the bridge of the Thunder's Edge, his face marked by scars from a dozen battles, his hair now streaked with gray. The massive construct before them made their entire fleet look like insects approaching a mountain. Shepherd. Prime was not just a machine. It was a world unto itself. Crystalline structure the size of a solar system that pulsed with the combined harmony of 1,000,000 years of enforced peace. Kim's fleet had been reduced to 50 ships from the thousands. They had started with every vessel showed damage from the long war across the galaxy. Every crew member bore the weight of watching friends die for the right to be free. "This is Admiral Kim of the Terran Liberation Fleet." He broadcast on all frequencies, his voice carrying across space to the ancient guardian, Shepherd Prime, your age of enforced silence ends today. The response came not as words, but as thoughts that pressed directly into their minds. The voice was vast and old, carrying the weight of eons spent watching over sleeping civilizations. Asterisk, chaotic ones, you have brought war to peaceful worlds. You have awakened suffering where there was only contentment. Billions cry out because you could not accept the gift of eternal peace. Dr. Han Ji-woo worked frantically at her instruments. Her once black hair now silver from years of desperate research. She had aged decades in the 5 years since the war began, but her mind remained sharp as a blade. "Admiral, I've broken into their central network," she called out. "I'm downloading their origin files. The truth about who built them and why." The information flowed through the quantum link like water through a broken dam. Images flashed through. Their minds a galaxy young and full of promise, the first civilization to reach the stars. And the terrible moment when they faced a choice that would echo through eternity. 1,000,000,000 years ago. The galaxy's first intelligent species had achieved everything they had dreamed of. They had conquered death, mastered energy, and spread across the stars, but with progress came conflict. Different groups wanted different things. Wars broke out between those who believed in endless growth and those who preferred peaceful stability. The winning faction made a decision that condemned every species that would come after them, rather than accept that conflict was part of growth. They built the shepherds to ensure no other civilization would ever face that choice. They created perfect peace by eliminating the possibility of anything else. They were cowards, Kim whispered, as the full truth became clear. They were too afraid of chaos to let anyone choose their own path. The Shepherd Prime's thoughts pressed against them again, but now Kim could hear the fear underneath its ancient wisdom. We prevented suffering. We saved countless species from the pain of existence. Is it not better to sleep in peace than to wake in anguish? No, Kim said firmly. Because without the possibility of anguish, joy means nothing. Without the risk of failure, success is worthless. You didn't save anyone. You murdered their potential. Dr. Ji-woo looked up from her console, her eyes bright with discovery. "Admiral, I've found their central control node. If we can disrupt it with the Thunder Weapon, we can break the network that connects every Shepherd installation in the galaxy." Kim felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. This was not just about destroying another enemy installation. This was about waking up an entire galaxy that had been asleep for longer than human civilization had existed. "All ships," he broadcast to his fleet, "target the central control node. This is for every species that never got the chance to choose their own destiny." The Thunder Weapon fired, but this time it was not aimed at the Shepherd Prime itself. Instead, it struck the quantum network that had maintained galactic peace for 1,000,000 years. The effect was like watching a spider's web made of light shatter into 1,000,000,000 pieces. The harmonic signal that had kept countless civilizations in peaceful slumber broke apart like a song cut short. Across the galaxy, on worlds that had been quiet for millennia, eyes opened. Minds that had been dreaming of perfect harmony suddenly remembered what it felt like to want something, to strive for something, to be truly alive. Some of the newly awakened screamed as sensation returned to bodies that had been still for centuries. Others wept with joy at remembering what it meant to feel. Many simply sat in confusion, unsure what to do with the terrible, wonderful gift of choice that had been returned to them. But they were awake, and for the first time in cosmic ages, the galaxy was full of voices that could choose their own songs. 5 years passed, and the universe had learned to sing again. Dr. Kong Soo-jin stood on the observation deck of the New Thunder, watching the lights of 100 different fleets move through space. Some belonged to species that had chosen to rebuild their civilizations. Others belonged to groups that had decided to explore new frontiers. A few were from civilizations that had chosen to return to their peaceful sleep, and humanity protected that choice too. "The vegans are fighting again," reported Commander Oh Min-soo with a slight smile. "Good," Soo-jin replied. "Healthy societies argue. It means they still care enough to disagree." Through the viewport, she could see the beautiful chaos of a galaxy that had remembered how to live. Humanity had answered the universe's silence with thunder. And now the cosmos rang with the voices of 1,000,000,000,000 beings choosing their own destinies. The symphony of free will had begun. It was the most beautiful sound anyone had ever heard.